comes from Louisville, Kentucky, respectfully served our country in the Marines from 1968 until 1971, and in 1974 joined the band that began what we know as Southern rock. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006 and was on the huge hits Saturday Night Special, That Smell, and What's Your Name. Today, he's still touring with his own band, his son, and so awesome to be chatting with the wild man of Southern rock, Artimus Pyle of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Artimus, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, Kiki.
But here's the question. Here's the question. Are you still wild?
You know, that's not something I called myself, but I guess I would be considered wild.
Now, did Ronnie give that to you?
Well, he did. He kind of started that, but you know, he was actually the wild man.
Well, let's just go back a little bit, Artimus. You know, it's 1971. You were honorably discharged from the Marines. Then 3 years later, you replaced your friend, drummer Bob Burns, in one of the biggest bands at that time. So how did you go from serving in the military to drumming for Lynyrd Skynyrd?
Well, I've always been a drummer from the very beginning of my life. You know, I've always played drums. And when the doctor spanked me on my butt and I came out, he hit me on the fanny, and I said 2, 3, 4. So, you know, the slap on my butt when I was born was the downbeat. I'm a natural drummer. I rode horses in Tennessee and Kentucky, and the galloping hooves underneath me. I ride Native American style. I don't use a saddle. That and the fact that when I was a kid, I ran bulldozers for my grandfather's road building company through Tennessee. So sitting up on those big Cat D8s with that, you know, that diesel clatter under me and horses, I really find rhythm and drums in everything, in nature, windshield wipers. I've written a couple of songs to the windshield wipers. Just
the words that you use and to describe everything, I felt like I was right there with you.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody has them because I feel like everybody is a drummer. You snap your fingers, you clap your hands, you know, everybody kind of taps their toe to the music. If you do it every day, you get good at it. And I've played drums every day of my life for 70 years. It's my music. I can say that it is Lynyrd Skynyrd music is my music. So especially when I'm playing that music, I push everything aside, all the pain, all the worries of the day, and I focus completely on playing those songs the way they were written and the way they should be played, with a little variation on depending on how I feel, because I don't like to be like a machine. I like it to have feel. So if I feel on one night I want to put a little funk in Sweet Home Alabama, I do it. It doesn't change the song at all. It's just how I feel. If I'm playing Saturday Night Special and I want to pretend that I'm John Bonham from Led Zeppelin for a minute, I do it. I can be any drummer when I'm playing. I'm thinking about my friends. I'm thinking about Ronnie Van Zant. I'm thinking about Steve Gaines and Alan Collins and Billy Powell and Leon Wilkeson and the girls, you know, Leslie Hawkins, JoJo Billingsley, and of course Cassie Gaines. JoJo and Cassie are gone. Leslie lives in Florida, and so when I'm playing the songs, I'm thinking about everything. I'm thinking about the music, the people, you know, my friends that made the music. And it never, you know, somebody asked me the other day, does it get old? And it absolutely does not get old. I don't care how many times I've played Sweet Home Alabama. I play it the best way that I can every single time. Sit there and think about, you know, what I'm going to have to eat after the show. I am thinking about those songs and what went into those songs and my friends.
Yeah, I can totally tell that about you. And you really are adamant about staying true to all of those songs. And you do such a fabulous, fabulous job doing that.
Oh, well, thank you. We everywhere we go, I mean, we just played on a ship going to Mexico. We do it every year. This was our 7th year. And my band, APB, played the cruise. It's for the Native American Heritage Association, and it's called the Rock Legends Cruise, and it goes out of Fort Lauderdale. It's really, every year that we've done it, the first year ZZ Top was one of the headliners. There's 25 bands, 65 performances on 10 different stages all over one of the largest ships on the water, Independence of the Seas, Royal Caribbean. And they're great people. And the people from the Native American Heritage Association out of Front Royal, Virginia, they are incredible people. And they have invited us back 7 years in a row. The reason they've invited us back, we're the only band that has been on every single cruise.
Wow.
And we're, like, for instance, last week, a couple of weeks ago, we went to Mexico with Buddy Guy, Roger Daltrey from The Who.
Wow.
Kansas, Canned Heat, The Outlaws, the Devin Allman Band with, Dwayne Betts,
yep.
Dickie's son. And last year it was Peter Frampton. Then it was Pat Benatar was one of the headliners. Greg Allman. We were all very fortunate to be able to spend time with Greg on that last cruise. And then we lost Greg.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's 25 bands. My little band is included. And people, the Skynyrd music is so strong. There's not a bad song.
Right.
Ronnie did not write hit songs. He wrote hit albums. Every single song on every single album means something special to someone somewhere. And I hear the stories. After every show, I sit for 2 hours and I sign albums, and I hear how much the music means to the fans. I hear stories of where they were when they found out that we crashed, and I relive it every show. And so it's my duty to go to these shows, play this music with a great band. My guys, they're all successful businessmen in their own right, but they grew up. I'm 70 and they're all like 55. And they grew up with the music.
Right.
And they love it as much as I do. And they play it with honor and respect and accuracy. And the fans absolutely love our band. There's 5 of us. Play the music. We don't put on a Las Vegas circus clown act. Ronnie's words are enough. We don't have to shoot off confetti cannons and do all this other weird stuff. It's to me, it's all about the words and the music. And I'm very proud of my band. And also on the cruise was my other band with my son. It's called Chapel, Chappell.
Right.
And that's his middle name. It's a family name. All of my family were doctors. Dr. Chapel, going way back. And so I named my oldest son Christopher Chapel Pyle, and that's the name of his band. And our new album that we just dropped, it's on CD Baby. It's one of the best albums I've ever played on. I play those songs with the same ferocity that I play Skynyrd. And our album is called Southern Fried Tribal Boogie.
I love that. Yeah.
And it's very Afro-Cuban, Native American drum stuff, along with rockin' Southern rock feel. And I'm on my way to rehearsal right now, and because we've got a gig in Atlanta, and we're doing a benefit to raise awareness for the great life of Robert Burns, the original drummer for Lynyrd Skynyrd. And Bob and I were very close, and he was killed in a car wreck a few years ago. Myself and a guy named Chris Jericho, Rich Ward, the list of players is extensive. And they have a band. I think Chris got a band called Fozzy, and they're really good. And so there's going to be a lot of people coming to this thing, and it's very simple what it is. It's just I feel that Bob Burns never got enough credit. He played brilliantly on the first album, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. I was still a sergeant in the Marines, and he played on Sweet Home Alabama.
Right.
So Bob, he was the guy that Ronnie Van Zant first went to, and they practiced in Bob's carport, in Florida. It was kind of cool, and I don't know if the path of Lynyrd Skynyrd would have been exactly the same without Bob Burns or without Ed King, who we lost a few months ago, that wrote Sweet Home Alabama with Ronnie and Gary. I think Ronnie Van Zant, it was his vision, and Ronnie certainly would have gotten the job done somehow, some way. I think Bob Burns and Ed King made a significant contribution to the band, and Bob never got the credit that he deserved. So I'm doing a show with all of these great musicians in Bob's stomping grounds, up there north of Atlanta. I miss him.
I know. I'm so sorry. So sorry. But Artimus, going back to when you first joined Lynyrd Skynyrd, Saturday Night Special, that was released from the album Nothing Fancy, and that song made it into the movie The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds. How was that to kick off your career in that band?
Well, that was a great song. It was a great movie. At first I thought, oh no, it's a Burt Reynolds movie, so it's going to be one of those movies like Strucker Ace or something where he, I thought it had a possibility of being cheesy, but it was not.
No.
The Longest Yard was a very serious movie, and it had many funny parts. Burt Reynolds, one of my favorite of all time. Burt, played such an incredible character in that movie. In the, as you say, in the very beginning, when just before he was arrested and went to prison, they were playing Saturday Night Special in the Citroen Maserati that he was being chased. The police were chasing. That was filmed in Savannah, Georgia. Then he dumped it into the Savannah River, and you could hear Ronnie, bubbling and gurgling as the car sunk. And Ronnie was saying, "Mr. Saturday Night Special" through the bubbles. I saw that movie in a movie theater in Spartanburg, South Carolina, with about 4 other people one afternoon at a matinee. Nobody was there. And I sat in the very middle and I watched the whole movie. And, when Saturday Night Special came on at the very beginning, I was just, it was thrilling. And then at the end of the movie, when the credits rolled and it said Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I knew that was my band, I yelled at the top of my lungs, screamed. But there was only about 2 people in the place, and they kind of looked at me, and since there was just 2 of them, I said, that's my band. And of course, I looked like Charles Manson, and kind of a wild-looking dude with hair down below my butt and a long beard. So they probably, as I remember, I don't think they had much to say back to me. They ran out, but I was, I had a smile on my face. It was a good moment. It was a happy moment, and I'll never forget it. I didn't hear myself play with the band on the radio for the first time. I heard it in a movie theater.
Wow!
And thanks for asking.
Oh, that is awesome. But now then, we're in 1975, and things were happening in your band. Bob left. Producer Al Cooper separated himself. Then the late Ed King left after him and Ronnie had a falling out. So at that time, were you actually questioning yourself, should I stay or should I go?
Well, I was sad to see Ed go. I remember the night, that all went down. And I was in the limousine coming back from the show when Ronnie yelled at Ed, and Alan Collins was in the car that wrote Freebird. And so Ronnie really upset Ed, and Ed left that night and asked me not to tell anybody he was leaving until he was gone. And I kept my word. And the next morning, Ronnie said, "Have you seen Ed?" And I said, "He's gone." I said, he flew out last night, and he said he's done. And so it never occurred to me to leave the band. I was doing what I wanted to. I was sad that Ed was gone, but I was in a rock band that played every night and to a lot of people. And I looked at Ronnie. He was the one that hired me. So, I looked at Ronnie and I said to myself, where am I going to find a more talented group of people. I mean, this is it. So it never occurred to me to quit. I'm not a quitter. You know, we're supposed to adapt, and that's what I did. I just there was a limbo period, you know, until we got Steve Gaines. But you know, my God, when Steve Gaines came along, it was kind of like it was worth the wait, because Steve was such a phenomenal human being, and so was Cassie, his sister. And you know, they were both killed in the plane crash, of course, but when they came along, Cassie was amazing, and Steve, I mean, Ronnie loved Steve. Ronnie had a writing partner, again, because he wrote a lot of stuff with Ed, and so, you know, when Steve came along, it was joyous, and that was obvious on the live album, and then Street Survivors. We were able to see how much talent Steve really had. That's one thing that I think about a lot, that, you know, Ronnie has a legacy, and he will live forever.
Yes.
And Steve will too, but Steve didn't have long enough. Steve had the ability, you know, I feel that Ronnie would have done collaborations with a lot of people, country stars and what have you, and Steve would have done the same thing, maybe all of us, but Ronnie would have definitely, he was a smart guy, and he would have kept his Lynyrd Skynyrd band together, because he knew that that was his bread and butter. And he worked hard to get that band and make it happen. And Ronnie wasn't just going to throw it away and go try to do a solo career. The band would still be together if Ronnie were here.
You are carrying on this legacy just so honorably. But you know what? You did the Knebworth Festival in 1976. Todd Rundgren was there, 10cc, Hot Tuna. Did the Stones get mad at you guys for using their tongue on the stage? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Well, Mick Jagger and the management from the Stones, they said absolutely forbidden, because the tongue was part of their shtick. It was part of their gimmick. They shouldn't have said that, because if they hadn't have said that, perhaps Ronnie wouldn't even have thought about it. But telling Ronnie that he couldn't go out on the tongue in front of 300,000 people was a mistake. And so not only, Ronnie took Gary and Alan right out to the end. I heard that Mick was kind of upset, but, you know, Ronnie just laughed. He thought it was funny. I did too. I mean, I think Mick respected Ronnie and kind of understood. That's rock and roll. I mean, you know, that's just the way it goes. That's rock and roll. I don't think he, you know, irrevocably, you know, broken over it.
Good.
But also, I feel like, you know, it wasn't something he wanted to grab a hold of Ronnie and say, hey, why did you do that? Or I don't think Mick would have wanted Ronnie to get upset with him, because Ronnie could kick Mick Jagger's ass any day of the week.
Now, Artimus, October 17th, 1977, Lynyrd Skynyrd releases the album Street Survivors. That Smell, What's Your Name were on there. Great, great songs. The album went gold 10 days after it was released, eventually went double platinum. But 3 days later, all of this didn't matter anymore, because your life and everyone else's changed forever on October 20th of 1977.
Oh, yeah. That's history. I mean, that's the day we had the crash. But up until that day, I mean, we had a great new album. Ronnie had a great new writing partner. Steve and Cassie were great people from a great family. And Steve and Ronnie hit it off. And it was kind of cool, because Ronnie, with Steve in the band, Steve was such kind of a mellow, laid-back guy and such a genuine person and everything. I think it helped Ronnie kind of, I was a good influence on Ronnie as far as his eating habits. I got him to eat more healthy. I always said, man, Ronnie, you know, you've got a beautiful voice. You got to stop chain smoking cigarettes. And I was the only guy that Ronnie would smoke pot with. He would come to my room and ask if I had a left-handed cigarette, and I'd say, yeah. And he'd kind of let his hair down with me a little bit because, pot makes you laugh, makes you giggle. And Ronnie didn't want that persona out there that, that he was a stoner, but he would smoke with me. And, I felt kind of honored about that. The rest of the time it was whiskey, and the hard look, the hard guy. So, that was his professional and stage persona. And that's who Ronnie really was. But everybody likes to giggle every once in a while.
Of course.
So it was the end of the band. I mean, you can't just replace somebody like Ronnie. And we went 10 years, before we played again. And everybody thought, bringing Johnny Van Zant back in would be a good idea. And it was. It was a great idea in the beginning, before all the drugs and alcohol started creeping in again. But, you just don't replace Ronnie Van Zant. So 10 years went by, and I was living in Jerusalem, Israel, with my family in the castle of King David on Mount Zion.
Wow.
And I was studying Old Testament, Leviticus, and I lived with 65 Jewish families, and I'm a Gentile, raised in the Methodist Church, but I felt very good about working with the Jewish people and helping them in any way that I could. I felt that it was an honorable thing to do. And then I got a call from Gary and Alan that we were going to do the tribute tour and what have you. And we got back together and did it, and everything was great. As I say, until the heavy drugs and alcohol creeped back into our lives. And I watched the band just decline. I mean, you see, Kiki, I was the drummer of the real Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Right.
So the movie is finished, and I wrote the screenplay, and then a script was derived from that. I spent 22 grueling hours. It was painful. I cried, I laughed, I yelled, I screamed, and got through it. The movie is done, and the director and all of the people involved at the hierarchy of the film, they tell me that it's unbelievably good, and that they watched the first 20 minutes of it that was finished, and they said they teared up a couple of times. So, I want the fans of Lynyrd Skynyrd to know what happened that fateful night. I'm the only one alive that knows.
Right.
I'm a pilot. My father was killed in a plane crash. All my friends were killed in plane crashes. I've been in 3 airplane crashes. And, I've never been knocked unconscious. So I know everything that happened on that plane. And I feel as though I'm qualified to tell the story because I was on that plane. Artimus Pyle has won the right to tell his own story, which should have been evident and apparent to everyone anyway.
Absolutely.
And it is a win for journalists, radio personalities, actors, actresses, writers, screenwriters, and the open market of ideas.
You do, again, so many great things for others. And last year you received a ring that was made from some of the wreckage of the plane that went down. Now, did you know that you were getting that ring, and how did you feel when you got that?
I did not know. And, when they handed it to me and told me that it was a part of the airframe, it was shocking. It jarred me a little. But it's a beautiful ring. I think there's not a lot of them. There's only a few, maybe 8 that were made out of the airframe. You know, just a little piece on the top of the ring. But, you know, I hold that in my hand, and I realize that's part of the plane that I went down in.
Well, again, you're just out there, you know, honoring everybody all of the time, which, again, you really are doing an amazing job, Artimus. And how about, you know, since you're honoring Bob Burns this weekend, give us, you know, a funny story that sticks out in your mind between you and Bob.
A funny story with Bob?
Yeah. Was there one? There had to be.
Oh, my God. Okay, I get a call from Bob, and Bob's got this distinctive voice. And he calls me up and he goes, Artimus, we're being inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, man. And they want us to play Freebird in Sweet Home Alabama. What are we going to do, dude? You know, and I said, Bob, you are the senior drummer. You were there before I. And I said, that's your call. I'll do whatever you say. And Bob, he said, well, you play Freebird and I'll play Sweet Home Alabama. He said, I haven't played in a while, and I don't think I could get through Freebird. And, I said, that's cool, man. And then the night that that we were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I was in my tuxedo playing tambourine on Sweet Home Alabama, and I glanced over at Bob, and there was just this beautiful look on Bob's face, and I could see a childlike smile, and he looked like that 16-year-old kid that started Lynyrd Skynyrd with a guy named Ronnie Van Zant, you know, and down there on the west side of Jacksonville. And it all flashed kind of before my eyes by looking at Bob, and I was so proud of him. And he deserved that. He deserved that so much.
Yes.
To be there. And then I got over on the drums and we played Freebird. Man, I played with everything I had in me. And then Ken Levitan and Ross Schilling got on each side of me and walked me through a little secret tunnel over to where the press corps was. And both of them said to me, wow, Artimus, we've never heard Freebird played like that. And, you know, I know they hadn't, because they'd never heard me play it like that live. They'd never heard me play live. But all they were really doing was kissing my ass so that I would say favorable things to the press. Well, Kiki, that night, I wasn't mad at anybody. I was being inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, something I never dreamed of.
Right.
And all I could say was, thank you, Ronnie. That was on my lips, was thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. This is something that I never dreamed of.
So why should people come out this weekend for the Bob Burns benefit?
First of all, because Bob deserves it, and because my good friend and the reason that I know this girl is because of Bob, and her name is Angel, and Angel and her friend Randy and Mark are the ones that actually put this all together. And they put it together for Bob. And that's the reason people should come out. If you love Lynyrd Skynyrd music, if that music means something in your life, Bob Burns, that was my introduction to Bob that I love doing. I say it all the time. It's out there that I've said this, but I said, ladies and gentlemen, when you fell in love with Lynyrd Skynyrd, the guy that was playing drums is the man I'm about to introduce. So please welcome the Ringo Starr of Southern rock and roll, Mr. Robert Bob Burns, right? And he would get a big applause. I saw people crying when Bob and I played together on the ship. We went out on that Native American cruise.
Oh, nice.
And I saw tears in people's eyes.
Of course.
Seeing me and Bob together. And it meant a lot to them, and it meant a lot to me, and then we lost Bob. So the reason they should come out is for Bob. The reason they're going to be glad they did is because of people like Chris Jericho putting on a hell of a show, people like Rich Ward that was on the cover of, Guitar Player magazine, and the unbelievable band that they put together to back this whole thing up.
Right. I mean, honestly, I'm just going to read off the list of people who are going to be there. We've got Ben Powell, Chris Chappell-Pyle, Randy Drake, Terry Chisholm, Tracy Angel Wade. I've seen her with you in events online. You guys seem like you're very, very close friends, and she does a lot with you. Eric Hogan, Phil May, Andrew Evans, Rich Ward, Chris Jericho. I mean, everybody can go for a night of amazing, amazing talent. It's kind of crazy, really, and really nice job putting this all together.
And a lot of people always ask me, what can they do to kind of pay back for all the great music and everything. Well, if those people want to do something great for Lynyrd Skynyrd, come out and support Bob Burns, because he was the drummer that played on many of the hits. I was fortunate to be included and play on Saturday Night Special and What's Your Name and That Smell and all kinds of great songs after Bob. But to show your appreciation for the band, Ronnie Van Zant would look down from heaven, and you would feel it. You would feel a glow if you come out and see this great band, And my son, he wrote these incredible songs. I'm so proud of him. Ronnie Van Zant would give him the thumbs up on his Southern rock. Van Zant loved my son, Chris. Chris was on the road with us when he was 4 or 5 years old. Thank God none of our children or our pets were on the plane when we crashed, because we used to carry our children and the pets on our private plane. And we all, all of us that survived, a lot of them are gone now, but we always used to talk about it, how lucky we were that none of the children or our dogs, weren't on the plane. It was bad enough losing the band, but to lose our children and, innocent animals, we were lucky in that. So I think the fans that love the Skynyrd music, that it means so much, please come out, listen to some great brand new Southern rock and roll, listen to a great set of cool songs that the guys have chosen to do. This show is about Bob, and this show is about Bob's family, and it's about the fans. Songs for kids, and anything for kids is a good thing to do. And music and kids, that's just a double whammy. So Songs for Kids, if they want to make a donation in Bob's name, Robert Burns, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame drummer of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And, another funny story about Bob is he would call me. I don't go to bed till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's not even going to bed, really. That's
no. Well, I mean, I'm on rock and roll musician's time. So because if I have a gig, we end at 2 o'clock.
Right.
We get on the bus, we go get something to eat. We watch some episodes of Andy Griffith, and by that time it's 4:30 in the morning. So Bob knew that I didn't go to bed till late, and he went to bed later than I did. And he would call me up and he'd go, Artimus. The phone would ring at like 4 o'clock. And he'd go, Artimus, it's Bob. And I go, Bob, first of all, nobody in the world sounds like you do. So I know it's you. And I said, secondly, nobody in the world calls me at 4 o'clock in the morning but you. So I'm pretty sure it's you. And I'm pretty sure I knew it was going to be you. And we'd have a big laugh, But Bob had a great personality. He was a funny guy. The reason I came in after Bob was because, Bob had some medical issues. He had a little bit of a breakdown. He had some medical problems. And I always thought that Ronnie Van Zant was going to bring Bob back in the band, because a lot of bands back in those days had two drummers. The Charlie Daniels Band had two drummers. The Allman Brothers, of course, had two drummers. Eventually, the 38 Special Band that got together because of Ronnie had two drummers. A lot of bands had that. And I thought that at some point, Bob would come back into the band, and we'd do the double drummer thing, because I love playing double drums with my son and anybody else, because it gives you more options. It's like an engine that's running,
Power.
And it's power. And it's like Bob and I, we loved it. And I thought Bob was going to come back into Lynyrd Skynyrd, because I don't know if your research showed this, but there's a song called Am I Losing? And Ronnie wrote that song for Bob. And I knew that it was very close to Ronnie. And I knew that he loved Bob, that he hated that Bob had the medical issues.
Right.
But, he had to go on, and that's where I came in. But I thought Bob was coming back, because Am I Losing? You should listen to it. It's really a beautiful song, and it's Ronnie stating that he hates losing friends over money,
Yeah.
And that, the record, Ronnie had a record company, MCA, down his throat, on his back, saying, we want another tour. We want another album. We want another tour. We want another album. Ronnie, as the head and the visionary of Lynyrd Skynyrd, he was the man. So he had a great deal of pressure. So he had to continue on. But I know that he wanted to bring Bob back into the band. And whether I would stay or go, I didn't really care. I knew that one way or another I was going to be a drummer for the rest of my life. That's what I do. I can run a bulldozer. I can write my name with a bulldozer, any size bulldozer, any piece of heavy equipment. I can write my name with it.
That's kind of crazy, because you have a long name.
I can fly an airplane with the best of them. There's a lot of things that I can do, but what I love doing the most is playing drums to music that I love and believe in, and that is Lynyrd Skynyrd music, and that is my son's music from the band Chapel.
How cool is that, Artimus? And, I have to say again, I've said it several times already, but you just do an amazing job keeping Ronnie's memory, Bob, Steve, Cassie, and the other members alive with your music and the music of your iconic band, Lynyrd Skynyrd, and of course with your band, the Artimus Pyle Band. It's been a total honor to speak to you, and all the best to you always.
Thank you so much, Kiki.